Good thing it's still recording. Ah. Alright, so in today's video we're going to be discussing belts, more specifically gun belts. Everybody should at least get a gun belt. And I'm not talking about your EDC belt that you'd wear with your normal clothes, things like that. I'm talking about your quintessential war belt, the tactical belt, alright? There's nothing really super special about it. I've got several types, and they're from very basic all the way up to the more advanced. Now, why would we have something like this? It's pretty simple. Fall is right around the corner. The weather is going to start getting cooler going into winter. Now, people are going to start wearing fleeces, jackets, things like that. When you're training, sometimes it's hard with all that stuff on to get to your gun, all right? So if you're working on holster work, things like that, last thing you want to do is have to dig through like 10 layers of clothes. Now, rule of thumb, you usually keep your gun at 1 layer. That being said, that's great for everyday carry. But when it comes to the more tactical side of things, right, like, you know, when stuff hits the fan, zombies are outside, whatever is your cup of tea, whatever floats your boat, whatever you want to think about, there's certain things that you're definitely going to want to have in your little inventory. So, it doesn't have to be super expensive. It could be almost anything. Basically, you're just trying to get your holster and probably extra mags and everything on the outside of all your clothes. This way your clothing doesn't become a problem. Alright, so it's something you just throw on over everything. Alright, first up is just a really basic, rudimentary, it's a rigger's belt. It's got a holster on it. This one is set up for a Glock 19 with a TLR1 light. This is something like in the middle of the night you'd throw on to go, you know, clear your home or whatever. It is just Velcro, and over time the Velcro will start to give out, and then you'll have to replace the whole belt. So you can see it's not taking much to get that Velcro to go. This is obviously an older belt. It does have a spot for a carabiner for rappelling. This you really have to crank down. The problem with that is, as you can see, the holster is down here at the bottom. It's not really held on with much. Alright? So, when you go to crank this section down over the Velcro, the holster might not go forward into a 3 o'clock position that you want. Which means you're going to have to offset your belt a little bit. So now all of this is going off to your left or right side, depending on if you're right or left-handed. But in the middle of the night, something like this will do just fine. In a pinch, something like this will work perfectly. You can leave something like this in your vehicle just with an external holster, whether it is level 1 or level 2 or level 3 retention, I don't care. There's a whole different video on holsters. But at least you have a belt, you can throw it on top of everything and go out and do your whatever you need to do. Training, go rescue the world, bug out, get home, what have you. Alright? External belt with a holster and hopefully some extra magazines. Alright? Next up. Now this is an old school belt. This is a type of war belt you would have seen early 2000s. Alright? It is one of these big bad boys right here. Alright, now a lot of the stuff is missing off of it because I've cannibalized this belt for other things. I have used this one in training, not extensively. That's why it's in actually pretty good condition. Got a bunch of AR mags on it. It had pistol mags and other things. It does have this really old school drop leg holster on it, which nobody's really using anymore. But hey, it's retro. Right? Underneath, so this whole thing, the molly and everything right here, is where you would attach everything. when you open it up, internally is your secondary belt. So this is the belt you're going to be clipping together to hold it onto your body, and this is how you're going to adjust the size. Once it's done, you're going to close this up over it, and it's all sealed up. All right, both sides have that, and the sides here and here open up, and then the back side does not. So you just weave it in there, set it to your size, and clip it. Now, it's important to understand, if you're going to do an old school belt like this, you're going to want to get something that's smaller, because they come in different sizes. I don't exactly remember what size this one is. It was the only one they had in stock, and I needed one for a training class I was going to. You do not want it this close to the buckle. All right, you prefer to have this a little further back so you have more access to your belt and everything. The molly is good. One of the problems that happens with this, when you attach everything to the molly, as it starts to pull out like this. The more stuff you have, the heavier it is, the more it's going to do this on you. It's good in a pinch, but overall, there's better options. This is all you can get. Size right there. This is a large. This part right here is a large. The black belt underneath is kind of a universal belt. It'll fit almost everybody, based on the Velcro and all that good stuff. Again, in a pinch, this will work. It's not my preferred belt. All right. This is the only type of holster that will really work with it, is this old school drop leg holster, which you hook into the internal belt right there. This is where it's latched. Drops down through the pocket in this one. You don't have much adjusting it for height, so it's there. You can't make this any shorter. It's okay, but again, there's better stuff out there. You can see the extra stuff, because I tried to raise this up as much as I could. I don't like the holsters really far down my thigh. I prefer the gun at about a medium height, and that's pretty much what I'm running now, is a medium height Firearms. Now let's take a look at the belt that I currently use basically as part of my training, every day at work, when I do training and teaching, things of that nature. This is completely filled out with everything you need, all right? And we'll go over who manufactured it, things like that. All right, now for the belt that I use pretty much every day. It's always with me for different training evolutions. It is manufactured by a company called Subc. All right, and you see that it's got everything on it. We're going to go over all the individual pieces. But Subc, the reason I'm running this belt is, one, I used it, I got it, full disclosure, to try out, to test, to basically review for YouTube for the other channel, which we won't talk about. And I reached out to this company very specifically because the person that owns it, that manufactures these belts, is a Connecticut native. Joined the Navy, or sorry, he'll kill me for that. He's a Connecticut native. He joined the Army. He was a Ranger. And now that he's retired, he's making some pretty damn good gun belts. All right. So it is a two-piece belt. You have the, I'm going to undo the Cobra buckle. You've got the outer part and then the inner part. So the inner belt is just Velcro. It is rigid. You can see that there's not a lot of droop to it. It is nice and supportive. That being said, this is the part that you're going to weave through your pants. You can, when you order these, you can get different thicknesses of the belts. I went with just a 2-inch, which is the widest they have. Most people are probably going to do 1 3/4, so 1.75. That's what most belt loops are going to fit. Yes, this one's too big for that, so I usually have my regular EDC belt, and then I put this right on top of that. It is just standard hook and loop. The only drawback to something like this is really trying to crank it down. I personally like my belts super tight, so as I move, the belt is really not moving. Now, this one does sit on top of everything, and the reason I opted for the 2-inch is because it's not a guarantee that it's always going to be connecting to, say, my pants, right? If I'm wearing a longer jacket or a longer fleece, I am just going to put this on top of the whole thing, all right? And again, the one drawback that I have is I really have trouble cranking this one down, okay? So that being said, sometimes I just skip the inner belt, and I'll just go straight with the outer belt. Now comes the outer belt. The outer belt is obviously the opposite when it comes to the hook and loop. Now the drawback that you will find is as you attach things, depending on how you're attaching them, like my Firearms holster, it's smooth plastic, tends to have trouble connecting to things. When you're running things that would normally go through straight moly, you're going to hit this where it is basically not adhering to that inner belt, which can cause issues with the belt shifting and moving. One of the ways that I personally like to prevent that is I go with, for magazine pouches and everything, I use the Tech Block, and then I go shopping at Joann's, and I just buy the sticky hook and loop, and then I just cut a piece off, and I stick it to the back side of that Tech Block, so when I put this on, these little pieces of plastic are now going to adhere to that inner belt. What do I usually carry on my outer belt? It's pretty simple. The whole thing, so how it's all held together. It's held together with a pretty robust Cobra clasp. It is adjustable. Now, one thing you'll find is once you cinch this down and you're happy with how it fits, sometimes it does have a tendency to start to ride and get loose again. So one of the things I do to combat that is once I get this where I want it, I will use the high-speed electrical tape to wrap it up to ensure that the belt doesn't shift and loosen up on itself. Problem with that is making adjustments on the fly. So if it's attached to my waist, like my pants, and all of a sudden I need to put a jacket on and run this above that jacket, the belt is going to all of a sudden become very tight. So then I have to stop, cut the electrical tape, loosen the belt, and then I can put it over all the garments. All right? So I personally don't like it shifting and having to readjust it right in the middle of a training event. So I try to have it preset for the weather conditions, as in if I'm wearing a jacket, if it's warm out, if I'm in a pair of pants, so on and so forth. All right? It does have a little area right here, a D-ring. This is not for rappelling. I'm sure in an emergency you could probably get away with it. This is for a retention lanyard, so if you're flying in a helo, you're going to use that. It is retained back by a little piece of fabric and Velcro. It's got the Subc logo. So the holster I run is a standard Firearms holster set up for a P320. Next comes the IFAK, or my little blowout bag. Then a dump pouch, which I like to have folded up. Because anyone that has used these before, if they are open, which if you need them, have them open. But day to day with just training with these left open, and if you don't need them, because it's easy to open, all you do is pull this and it unfurls. You might have someone that likes to fill it up with rocks and random objects they find, either on the training range or, you know, in the middle of a war zone, whatever. But I've had people fill these up before with a bunch of crap because, you know, they got jokes and stuff. I run 2 AR-15 mags. If I need to lose one, take one off, it's pretty simple. I just unlock the Tech Block and the whole thing just comes off. And that makes it easier to make these adjustable. I run 2 spare pistol mags because it's training and I'm stateside. But if I wanted to lose one of these, I would lose the one up front, because you only need that one spare mag. And then it frees up this area for other things, like if I want to put a knife on there or whatever suits your mission needs. I do use just a little clip right here just to retain gloves. Sometimes it's not a smart idea to have your gloves on your belt because it's a good snag hazard. So I'd run them here, or I also have like a little D-ring that I use on my recce rigs, things like that, to where I can just take the gloves off if they're not actively on my hands, and I can clip it to my chest, taking it basically off the belt. And then what would I put here? Well, you can put a bunch of chem sticks. If you need to use them, that's where I would put them. Chem sticks should be able to just be pulled off, so it's the loop on the back side of the chem stick should not be solid plastic. It should be broken to where you can just pull and the glow stick comes right off, right? If I were to remove this one, and I didn't have any of the bigger glow sticks, I have a small chem light dispenser. It's about the size of one of these, a little bit taller, and it holds those tiny little chem lights that you can just hold in your hand, break it with a couple of fingers, and throw it, so on and so forth. So this is just a standard belt. Again, I'll run this with that inner belt, or if I need to, I'll just put this whole thing right on, clip it, and go. Now, when it comes to the holsters, if you're running one type of gun, then you probably don't have to do this, but if you use different types of guns, so one day you may have a Glock, one day you might have a SIG. If you're poor, it might be, you know, an M&P shield or whatever. I'm just picking on M&Ps. All right. Your holster, you might want to have one of the QLS systems to where you can just unlock it, pull that holster off, and lock the new holster in, depending on what gun you're carrying that day, mission set, so on and so forth. Which means if you're going to have this in your vehicle, then you're going to have to also maintain a whole bunch of different types of holsters in your vehicle depending on what type of gun you have that day. That does get a little expensive and could be a little annoying to have a bunch of just random holsters floating around inside your vehicle. So I personally try to stick to one or another gun. It's either going to be a P320 or a Glock 19. I have holsters for both, and that's it. Those are the only two. I have a lot more handguns, but those are the only two that I'm using as EDC. Everything else is just for training. If for some reason I am carrying something other than the 19 or the P320, just because those guns can be a little hard to conceal depending on what you're wearing, and say I'm going to go with like a 43 or 43X, I'm not carrying holsters for those guns in my vehicle. So if, you know, stuff were to hit the fan, I'm basically going to not be able to utilize this holster, though I would try to use the rest of the belt. I will not have spare mags. So it's one of those things where it's going to be a trade-off, right? Yeah, I have these, so I might just be utilizing the belt at that point for spare AR mags. But then again, I live in Connecticut, like I'm sure most of you do, and you can't be rolling around with truck guns or an other or a pre-ban AR in your vehicle. And if you're doing that, that is kind of dumb, since there is a rash of cars being stolen in our state. That's the last type of gun you want to lose in this state, because your life is pretty much ruined. So don't be that person that carries that stuff around with you. Just keep it simple. You've got the gun on you, that's all you're going to need. All right? Again, at night, all this stuff is pretty much coming out of my vehicle. It's all contained in a giant bag, and I just take that bag with me every day, in and out, in and out. It's an everyday carry bag. All right? Again, I'm going to link down below the website for Subc where I got that belt. There's a lot of great companies out there. Whether you're looking at LBT, Spiritus, who makes pouches and stuff like that, Faro Systems. There's a bunch of companies out there that are making belts. All right. When it comes to this, buy once, cry once. All right. I know some people are going to go, And you're like, well, I'll just buy me a Condor belt. Well, that's great if you're LARPing or you're going airsofting. But when it comes to having belts like this with equipment on it that is literally going to save your life, it's going to make or break it, I would want quality over quantity. Buy it, spend the money, train in it. All right, don't just hang it up and never use it. Literally train with it. Go to the range wearing it. Make sure it fits right. Make sure it's not sliding around. Make sure you can move in it, walk. You can sit down in it, things like that. I've seen some people come through training and they've got a pretty decent gun belt, but then they have that big, obnoxious IFAK on the back. Hey, that's great for training that day. But one, it's not a rip away. Two, you ever tried to sit in a vehicle with an IFAK that freaking big? You don't fit in the damn car anymore. Alright? So don't wear something that massive. Get yourself a tiny little IFAK from a website like Real World Concepts. It's a local company. It's a local guy making these things. Help out the local, the Pro 2A community here in Connecticut. Now, granted, I know people across the nation are watching this video, but listen, most of you guys are in Connecticut. We are all behind enemy lines. So ordering from all these other companies, it's great. Some of these companies will not ship to our state. That being said, there are plenty of in-state companies that'll hook you up. All right? So, there you go. Links are all down below for all the stuff that I've talked about. You want to look at them, great. But listen, it comes down to if you buy it, train with it. Even if it's just you in your home dry firing. Right? You need to shake out the bugs now. Because when that day comes, if it ever comes, which I pray it never does, and you actually need to don all your LARPing equipment, and you need to go out and do goon shit. If you haven't shaken out your gear, and you just put random crap on it because it looks cool, you're going to learn very quickly some of that stuff is in a bad spot, and it could get you killed. So, go into the range, you're going to train, wear all the stuff. I don't care if the FUDs make fun of you. Screw them. You're training. You're getting it done. Do it. Plenty of people at work I see on the weekends coming in with all their stuff on, trying to shake their gear down. Figure out what works, what doesn't work, so on and so forth. Right? Don't be a FUD. That's all I got for you guys on this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was a little informative. I know it's kind of a dry subject, talking about belts that basically just hold up your pants. But to me, it's an important subject because all the stuff that I put on my belt could be life-saving equipment, whether it's extra magazines, extra ammunition, my dump pouch, IFAK, the holster, even that, buy once, cry once, all right? Get a quality holster. Don't run a Serpa holster, for crying out loud, people. You know, the people I see show up to these training events with like a Black Hawk Serpa holster, and then you go prone, you get rolling around in the muck, and all of a sudden you find out you've got a rock or some debris up behind that stupid little four-finger button that unlocks the gun, and guess what? Now your gun's stuck. It's locked in position, and sometimes you can't get that foreign object out from behind the button, and you're SOL. And God forbid something real was going down and you needed to transition, you're transitioning to nothing because that gun is stuck. So, when it comes to getting a holster, just regular retention, much like a Bravo holster, so basically level 1. But if you got the extra cheddar, or saving up for it is even best, get a decent holster. Get a Safariland holster. They're amazing, hands down, some of the best holsters on the market for that type of training. For everyday stuff, going out to the supermarket, running a Walmart, things like that, Bravo concealment, hands down, comfortable, easy to deal with, and worth every penny. And they're not that expensive. So, on their website, they're running a lot of cool deals. We sell them at the range. They're actually one of our biggest sellers when it comes to the holsters. Between that, alien gear, so on and so forth, always Bravo, hands down. I think it's the price point. It's pretty damn good. So, alright. Enough ranting. I will see you guys in the next video. Y'all have a great weekend. I'll talk to you later. I almost forgot. I'm sitting here getting ready to put all the stuff away. Please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit up the comments. Ask your questions. Anything goes down there. I'm in there every now and then answering questions the best I can. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to do my best to point you in the right direction. I'll find you the answer. Again, if I don't know it, and I can't find it, I'll shoot you to somebody who can answer it for you. But go right there. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys later.